These aren't just stories. They're what they don't want you to find. Welcome to Night Stories.
It started with a text from an unknown number. A link, no message. I should have deleted it. I should have known better. But Ethan had been missing for 3 weeks, and the police had nothing. No leads, no suspects, just a vague promise to keep looking. Desperation makes you stupid. I clicked the link. The page loaded slowly, a black screen with red text crawling across it like blood seeping from a wound. Welcome to the game, it read. Predict, win, survive. Below was a login prompt, no instructions, just a blinking cursor. I typed Ethan's name on a whim, and the screen shifted. A video player appeared, and there he was. My brother, tied to a chair, his mouth gagged with duct tape. His shirt was torn, stained with what looked like dried blood. The camera zoomed in on his face, his eyes darting wildly, pleading. A timer in the corner counted down, 72 hours. I screamed at the screen, my voice raw, but no one answered. The video looped, silent except for the faint hum of static. Below it was a chat window, messages scrolling so fast I could barely read them. Anonymous usernames, Player47, Shadowbet, Corpse Counter, posted predictions, each more grotesque than the last. Crushed by hydraulic press, one wrote. Eaten alive by rats, said another. Drowned in acid. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. These weren't just sick fantasies, they were bets. People were wagering cryptocurrency on how my brother would die. A pop-up appeared. Join the game? Yes, no. I hesitated, my finger trembling over the mouse. If I said no, what would happen to Ethan? If I said yes, what was I signing up for? I clicked yes. A new window opened, a profile set up. It demanded a username, nothing else. I typed sister and hit enter. The screen flashed red, then loaded a dashboard. My profile was bare except for a single stat, 0 points. Below it, a message. Earn points to unlock clues. Predict correctly to win. The rules were simple, laid out in cold clinical text. Players watched live feeds of subjects. Victims, I realized with a sickening lurch. We had to predict how they'd die from a list of options. Each correct prediction earned points, which could be traded for cryptocurrency or privileges. One privilege was information about a specific subject. Ethan's name was listed among dozens of others, each with a timer ticking down. His had 70 hours left. I scrolled through the options for the first subject, a man I didn't recognize. His feed showed him locked in a glass box, his face gaunt, his hands clawing at the walls. The choices were horrifying: suffocation, starvation, electrocution, or surprise method. I didn't want to play, but I had no choice. To save Ethan, I needed points. I picked suffocation at random, my hands shaking so badly I could barely click. The chat exploded with taunts. Newbie's gonna lose, one user typed. Sister's got no stomach for this, said another. I ignored them, focusing on the man's feed. Hours passed, my eyes burning as I watched. The air in his box grew hazy, his movements sluggish. He pounded on the glass, his lips turning blue. Then he collapsed, motionless. A red banner flashed across the screen. Suffocation. Correct prediction. 100 points. I vomited into the trash can beside my desk. The man was dead, and I'd profited from it. My points updated to 100, and a new option appeared. Spend 50 points to unlock a clue about subject Ethan. I clicked it instantly. A grainy photo loaded. A rusted metal door with a keypad, somewhere underground. No context, no location, just the image. It was something, but it wasn't enough. The next subject was a woman, her feed showing her strapped to a table, tubes running from her arms. The options were overdose, exsanguination, organ failure, or creative termination. I couldn't watch another person die, but I had to. Ethan's timer was down to 65 hours. I picked organ failure, closed my eyes, and waited. The chat mocked me again, calling me weak, saying I'd never save my boy. I wanted to scream at them, to beg for help, but I knew they'd only laugh harder. When the woman's feed ended, her body limp and gray, the banner confirmed my guess. Another 100 points. I spent 50 on another clue. A audio clip, 10 seconds long. Ethan's voice, broken and hoarse, whispering, "Please don't let them do it. Don't let them." The sound of his fear sliced through me, sharper than any knife. I played it again and again, trying to hear any background noise, anything that could tell me where he was. There was nothing but his voice and a faint drip, like water on concrete. The game didn't stop. New subjects appeared every few hours, each feed more grotesque than the last. A man in a pit filled with snakes, his screams muffled by a glass lid. A teenager chained to a wall, surrounded by rising water. The options grew stranger, more depraved. Disembowelment, vivisection, death by insect swarm. I made myself numb, picking answers like I was solving a math problem. I couldn't think about the people, their faces, their pain. I had to focus on Ethan. By the third day, I had 400 points. Ethan's timer was at 48 hours. I unlocked another clue, a map fragment, showing a partial street layout in a city I didn't recognize. It was maddeningly vague, but I saved it, piecing it together with the door photo and Ethan's voice. I hadn't eaten, hadn't slept. My apartment was a mess of coffee cups and scribbled notes, my phone buzzing with ignored calls from my parents. They didn't know about the site. I couldn't tell them. How do you explain that your brother's life depends on a game where people bet on death? The chat grew darker, more personal. Users started addressing me directly. "Sister's getting good," one wrote. "Bet she'd pick flayed alive for her brother." Another posted a gif of a knife slicing through skin, captioned, "For Ethan." I wanted to smash my laptop, but I couldn't stop. The next subject was a child, no older than 10, locked in a cage with a snarling dog. I couldn't AF seat watch. I picked mauling and turned off the screen, sobbing into my hands until the points updated. I unlocked another clue, a live feed, not of Ethan, but of a room. The same rusted door from the photo was in the background, the keypad glowing faintly. A figure moved in the shadows, too blurry to identify. They dragged something heavy, a body, across the floor. The feed cut off after 10 seconds. I re-watched it, pausing every frame, searching for details. The floor was concrete, stained with dark patches. Blood, maybe. The walls were cinder block, no windows. It looked like a basement, but where? Ethan's timer hit 24 hours. I had 600 points now, enough for one final clue before I'd have to keep playing. I spent them all. The clue was a single sentence. "He's closer than you think." My heart stopped. Was Ethan in my city? My building? I ran to my window, staring at the street below, half expecting to see that rusted door. Nothing. Just cars and strangers, oblivious to the nightmare I was living. The next subject appeared, but I couldn't focus. My mind was spinning, piecing together the clues. The door, the map, Ethan's voice, the basement. I Googled abandoned buildings in my city, cross-referencing the map fragment. Nothing matched. The chat noticed my absence. "Sister's giving up," one user wrote. "Ethan's done for." I wanted to scream that I wasn't giving up, that I'd die before I let them take him. But I had to play smarter, not harder. I picked a random option for the new subject, some poor soul strapped to a chair with wires attached to their chest. I didn't watch. I couldn't. My points climbed, but it wasn't enough. Ethan's timer was at 12 hours. I needed more clues, more time. The game didn't care. It kept going, relentless, pulling me deeper into its sick world. I wasn't just playing to save Ethan anymore. I was becoming part of it, a predator in a digital slaughterhouse. And the worst part? I was getting good at it. The screen flickered, casting jagged shadows across my apartment walls. Ethan's timer was down to 10 hours, each second ticking like a hammer against my skull. My hands were clammy, my eyes bloodshot from staring at the grainy feeds for days. The game had me now, its hooks deep in my psyche. I wasn't just playing to save my brother anymore. I was trapped in its rhythm, a sick dance of predictions and points. Every correct guess brought me closer to Ethan, but it also carved away pieces of me, leaving something hollow in their place. The latest subject was a man, middle-aged, his face swollen with bruises. He was suspended upside down in a concrete room, chains cutting into his ankles. Blood dripped from a gash on his forehead, pooling on the floor below. The options were grim. exsanguination, decapitation, blunt force trauma, or mechanical failure. The chat was buzzing, users throwing out taunts and bets like they were at a dogfight. Sister's gonna choke again, one wrote. Bet she picks wrong and Ethan gets it. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms until they bled. I chose exsanguination, not because I had a hunch, but because I couldn't think anymore. My brain was fog, my body running on adrenaline and coffee dregs. The man's feed played out in real time. His breathing grew shallow, the blood pools spreading beneath him. I forced myself to watch, not out of curiosity, but necessity. Every point mattered. The chat jeered, some cheering for his death, others mocking my silence. When his body went limp, the red banner flashed. Exsanguination, correct prediction, 100 points. I didn't feel relief, just a dull ache in my chest. My total was 700 points now. Enough for another clue, but I hesitated. The last one, he's closer than you think, had sent me spiraling, checking every basement door in my neighborhood like a lunatic. I couldn't afford another vague riddle. I spent 50 points anyway. The clue was a photograph, grainy and dim, showing a rusted pipe leaking water onto a concrete floor, the same drip I'd heard in Ethan's audio clip. My heart raced. It was the same room from the earlier feed, the one with the shadowed figure dragging something heavy. I zoomed in, searching for anything, a mark, a clue, anything to narrow down where this hellhole was. There was a faint graffiti tag on the pipe, barely legible. K7. It could be a street code, a gang mark, anything. I scribbled it down, my hands shaking so badly the pen tore through the paper. The game didn't wait for me to process. A new subject loaded. A woman this time, her arms bound behind her in a metal chair. The room was different, tiled, clinical, with a drain in the floor. The options were worse than before: chemical burn, flaying, hypothermia, or organic disposal. My stomach twisted at the last one, imagining what it could mean. The chat was relentless, users posting emojis of knives and flames, one even linking a gif of skin peeling back like paper. "Sister's too soft for this," someone typed. "Ethan's toast." I wanted to reach through the screen and strangle them, but I picked chemical burn instead, my cursor hovering like it was deciding my own fate. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was a blur. The woman's screams echoed through my laptop speakers as a nozzle above her sprayed something that made her skin blister and melt. I clapped my hands over my ears, but the sound burrowed into my brain. When the banner confirmed my guess, I didn't feel victory, just nausea. Another 100 points. I spent them immediately, desperate for anything concrete. The clue was a video, 5 seconds long. Ethan, still alive, his face gaunt, whispering, "They're watching you too." The feed cut to black. My blood ran cold. I spun around, half expecting to see someone in my apartment. The room was empty, but the shadows felt heavier, like they were hiding something. I couldn't stop. Ethan's timer was at 6 hours. I searched K7 online, cross-referencing it with the map fragment from earlier. Nothing definitive, but a few old forum posts mentioned a K7 tag in an abandoned industrial district on the edge of town. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. I grabbed my keys, ready to bolt, when the next subject loaded. A boy, barely a teenager, locked in a box with holes drilled in the sides. The options: asphyxiation, poisoning, starvation, or infestation. The chat was gleeful, posting bets on how many bugs would crawl through those holes. I picked infestation because the box was shaking slightly, like something was already inside. I didn't watch. I couldn't. I kept my laptop open, the audio muted, and drove to the industrial district. The streets were desolate, lined with crumbling warehouses and rusted fences. I parked near a building that matched the map fragment's layout, its windows boarded. A faint K7 spray-painted on a pipe outside. My heart pounded as I approached, a crowbar in my hand, stolen from my trunk. The air smelled of oil and decay, and every sound, wind, distant traffic, made me jump. The building's entrance was a metal door, rusted but not the one from the photo. I pried it open, the hinges screaming, and stepped inside. The air was thick, damp, the floor slick with something I didn't want to identify. My phone's flashlight cut through the dark, revealing concrete walls and pipes leaking that familiar drip. I followed the sound, my footsteps echoing, my breath shallow. The chat's taunts echoed in my mind. "Sister's gonna fail." But I pushed them down. Ethan was here. He had to be. A staircase led down to a basement level. The door at the bottom was the one from the clue, rusted, with a keypad glowing faintly. I punched in random codes, my fingers slipping, but the lock buzzed red each time. I slammed the crowbar against it, again and again, until my arms ached, but it didn't budge. Behind me, something skittered. A rat, maybe, or something worse. I spun, my flashlight catching only shadows. Ethan's voice from the video played in my head. "They're watching you too." My phone pinged. A notification from the game. The boy's feed had ended. Infestation. Correct prediction. Plus 100 points. I didn't care about the points anymore. I needed to get through that door. I spent 50 points on another clue, my hands trembling as the page loaded. It was a code. 7429. I punched it into the keypad, holding my breath. The lock clicked green, and the door creaked open. Inside was a concrete room, just like the feeds. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting long shadows. In the center was a chair, empty, but the restraints were blood-stained, the floor marked with dark smears. My stomach dropped. Ethan wasn't here, but something else was. A camera mounted in the corner, its red light blinking. They were watching. Not just Ethan, but me. I backed toward the door, my crowbar raised, when my phone pinged again. A new message, not from the game, but the same unknown number that sent the first link. "You're playing well, sister. Keep going." My knees buckled. They knew where I was. They'd been watching the whole time, not just through the game, but out here, in the real world. I stumbled back to my car, my mind racing. Ethan's timer was at 4 hours. I had to keep playing, keep winning, but the game wasn't just online anymore. It was here, in the shadows, in the drip of water, in the blinking red light that followed me everywhere. I drove home, the road blurring through tears. The game was waiting, a new subject already loaded. A woman, her eyes blindfolded, her hands tied to a table saw. The options were amputation, hemorrhage, infection, or manual disassembly. I didn't want to choose, but Ethan's face flashed in my mind, his voice begging. I picked hemorrhage, my fingers shaking so badly I nearly missed the button. The chat erupted, calling me a natural, saying I was one of them now. I wanted to scream that I wasn't, that I was doing this for Ethan, but the words stuck in my throat. The woman's feed played out, her screams cut short as the saw roared to life. I didn't watch, but I heard it, the wet crunch of bone and flesh. The banner confirmed my guess. Another 100 points. Ethan's timer ticked to 3 hours. I spent the points on one last clue. A live feed. Ethan. Still alive. His face pale, his lips cracked. He was in that room, the one I'd just left. The camera panned to the door, then back to him. A voice, distorted, whispered through the feed. "Hurry, sister. The game's just beginning." The dashboard of my car was a mess of empty energy drink cans and crumpled notes, each one scrawled with fragments of clues I'd pieced together. K7, the map, the rusted door, Ethan's broken voice. My phone sat propped against the steering wheel, the game's live feed casting a sickly glow across my face. Ethan's timer was at 2 hours 47 minutes. His latest video looped in my mind, his gaunt face, the blood caked around his mouth, that distorted voice taunting me. "Hurry, sister, the game's just beginning." I'd been to the basement, stood in that concrete tomb, seen the empty chair and the blinking camera. He was there, or had been, and I'd missed him. The failure burned worse than the exhaustion clawing at my bones. I was back in my apartment now, the air thick with the stench of unwashed dishes and desperation. The game didn't care that I'd driven across town, that I'd pried open doors and screamed Ethan's name into empty rooms. It kept rolling, relentless, a new subject already loaded on my screen. A man, his hands bolted to a metal table, his eyes wild with panic. The options were gruesome: incineration, impalement, evisceration, or thermal shock. The chat was alive, users tossing out bets like they were at a carnival, their words dripping with glee. "Sister's losing her edge," one typed. "Ethan's gonna bleed out before she gets there." Another posted a gif of a gutted fish captioned, "This you, sister? I wanted to smash the screen, but my points were at 750 and I needed more. Always more." I picked evisceration, my stomach lurching as I clicked. I didn't watch the feed, couldn't bear the man's screams or the wet sounds that followed. I focused on my notes, trying to make sense of the clues. The K7 tag, the map fragment, the basement. It all pointed to the industrial district, but I'd been there, and Ethan wasn't. Or was he? The game was toying with me, dangling him just out of reach. The camera in that room, its red light blinking, had seen me. They knew I'd been there. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was a hunt, and I was prey as much as Ethan. The banner flashed. Evisceration. Correct prediction. 100 points. My total hit 850. I spent 50 immediately, my fingers trembling as the clue loaded. It was a grainy still from a security camera, showing a hallway with that same rusted door in the background. A figure stood in the frame, hooded, holding a knife that glinted under flickering lights. Below the image, text, "He's moved. Keep playing." My heart sank. They'd taken Ethan somewhere else, and I was back to square one. I slammed my fist on the desk, my coffee mug crashing to the floor. The chat noticed, their messages turning vicious. "Sister's cracking," one wrote. "Bet she quits before Ethan's timer hits 0. I wanted to scream at them, to beg for answers, but they were ghosts behind keyboards, faceless sadists who thrived on my pain. I forced myself to focus, opening the map fragment again. The industrial district was a maze of warehouses and factories, most abandoned, some not. I cross-referenced K7 again, digging through old urban exploration forums. A post from years ago mentioned a derelict factory tagged with K7 near a rail yard. It was a different location from the basement I'd searched, maybe a mile away. I grabbed my keys, my crowbar, and a kitchen knife for good measure, tucking it into my jacket. The next subject loaded as I headed for the door, a woman, her legs chained to a concrete block, standing in a shallow pool of water. The options: electrocution, drowning, hypothermia, or pressure collapse. The chat was rabid, posting lightning bolt emojis and crude drawings of bloated corpses. I picked electrocution without thinking, my mind already on the rail yard. I left the feed running, muted, and drove, the city blurring past in a haze of streetlights and dread. The rail yard was a graveyard of rusted train cars and broken tracks, the air heavy with the smell of grease and rot. The factory loomed ahead, its windows shattered, the K7 tag faded but visible on a pipe near the entrance. My phone pinged. The woman's feed had ended. Electrocution, correct prediction, plus 100 points. I didn't care. I was here, where Ethan might be. The factory door was ajar, its hinges groaning as I pushed it open. Inside was pitch black, my flashlight cutting through cobwebs and dust. The floor was littered with broken glass and syringes, each crunch under my boots making me flinch. I followed the map fragment's layout, navigating past rusted machinery to a stairwell leading down. The air grew colder, damp, the drip of water echoing again. My flashlight caught another K7 tag on a pipe, fresh paint this time, like a breadcrumb. The stairwell ended at a metal door, not rusted but new, with a keypad. My hands shook as I entered 7429, the code from the last clue. The lock clicked green. The room beyond was a nightmare. Concrete walls, a single flickering bulb, and a chair in the center, its restraints slick with fresh blood. Ethan wasn't here, but the room reeked of him. His fear, his pain. Another camera blinked in the corner, its red light trained on me. I froze, my breath catching. They were watching again. My phone pinged, a new message from the unknown number. "Close, sister, but not close enough." I screamed, my voice echoing off the walls, and swung my crowbar at the camera. It shattered, sparks flying, but the feed on my phone didn't cut. Another camera, hidden somewhere, was still rolling. I spent 50 points on another clue, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. The clue was audio, Ethan's voice, barely a whisper. "They keep moving me. Don't stop." In the background, a faint hum, like machinery, and the drip of water louder now. I closed my eyes trying to place the sound, but it was too vague. The timer was at 1 hour, 12 minutes. I was running out of time. Back in my car, the game loaded a new subject. A man, blindfolded, strapped to a table with a pendulum blade swinging above his chest. The options: bisection, blood loss, organ rupture, or precision cut. I picked bisection, my mind numb, and drove back to my apartment. The factory's empty chair burned into my brain. The chat was merciless, sensing my desperation. "Sister's done," one wrote. "Ethan's going to be a masterpiece." Another posted a photo of a severed hand, captioned, "A souvenir for you." I gagged, my vision swimming, but I kept driving. At home, the pendulum feed was still running, the blade inching closer to the man's chest. I didn't watch. Couldn't. The banner flashed. Bisection. Correct prediction. Plus 100 points. My total was 900. I spent 50 on another clue, praying for something actionable. It was a video, 10 seconds, showing Ethan in a new room. Same concrete, same drip, but now with a window, high and barred, letting in faint moonlight. He was gagged, his eyes pleading, a fresh cut across his cheek. The feed cut to black and that distorted voice returned. "One last chance, sister. Choose wisely." The timer was at 45 minutes. I had 850 points left, enough for one more clue, but I held off, my mind racing. The window in the video was new. I reopened the map fragment, zooming in on the industrial district's rail yard. A few buildings had high windows, old factories converted into storage or left to rot. I cross-referenced the K7 tag again, finding a second mention of a factory near a water tower. It was a different site, half a mile from the one I'd just searched. I grabbed my gear and ran, the game's feed still open on my phone, a new subject already loading. The water tower loomed as I pulled up, its silhouette stark against the night sky. The factory was smaller, its walls crumbling. The K7 tag spray-painted across a loading dock. The door was locked, but my crowbar made quick work of it. Inside, the air was thick with mold, the drip of water louder now, almost rhythmic. I followed it, my flashlight shaking in my hand, until I reached another basement door. No keypad this time, just a padlock. I smashed it open, my arms burning with the effort. The room was the one from the video, concrete, barred window, blood on the floor. But Ethan wasn't there. Instead, a phone sat on the chair, its screen glowing. I picked it up, my hands trembling, and a message appeared. "You're late, sister." "He's gone. Keep playing." The timer on my phone hit 30 minutes. The game wasn't over. It was never going to let me win. The phone in my hand felt like a live grenade, its screen glowing with that taunting message. "You're late, sister. He's gone. Keep playing." My knees buckled and I sank to the blood-slicked floor of the concrete room, the drip of water echoing like a mocking heartbeat. Ethan's timer was at 28 minutes, each tick a knife in my gut. The air was heavy with mold and copper, the barred window above letting in slivers of moonlight that illuminated nothing but my failure. I'd been so close, again, and they'd moved him. The game was a maze with no exit, and I was running in circles, chasing a brother who might already be dead. My own phone pinged, the game's feed relentless as ever. A new subject had loaded, a woman this time, her body strapped to a vertical board, spinning slowly like a grotesque carnival game. The options were dizzying in their cruelty. Dismemberment, organ puncture, blunt trauma, or rotational failure. The chat was a frenzy, users posting knife emojis and crude sketches of severed limbs. "Sister's breaking," one typed. "Bet she's crying right now." Another sent a gif of a spinning top splattered with red, captioned for Ethan. I wanted to hurl the phone against the wall, but I couldn't. Points were my only currency, my only way to claw closer to Ethan. I picked organ puncture, my finger numb, my mind half gone. I didn't watch the feed, couldn't stomach the woman's screams or the wet crunch that would follow. I focused on the phone I'd found, the one left on the chair. It was a burner, no lock, its home screen empty except for the game's app. I opened it, and a new message popped up. "Want a bonus clue? Predict the next subject's death. 200 points. My stomach churned. A double-point round meant something worse was coming, something they wanted me to see. I stumbled out of the basement, the factory's darkness pressing against me like a living thing. My flashlight caught glints of K7 tags on pipes and walls, a trail of breadcrumbs leading nowhere. Back in my car, the game's feed confirmed my guess. Organ puncture, correct prediction, won 100 points. My total was 950. I spent 50 on another clue, desperate for anything to narrow down Ethan's location. The clue was a grainy photo of a water tower, the one outside the factory I was in, taken from a high angle, like from a drone. Below it, text. He's still in play. Don't stop now. The timer was at 22 minutes. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and drove aimlessly, the water tower fading in my rear view. The K7 tags, the map fragment, the basement rooms, they all pointed to this district, but it was too big, too many buildings. The game was rigging the odds, moving Ethan every time I got close. My phone pinged again, the bonus round loading. The subject was a man, his arms and legs bound to a chair, a metal contraption strapped to his chest. The options: explosion, crushing, asphyxiation, or internal rupture. The chat was ecstatic, posting fire emojis and bets on how much blood would spill. I picked explosion, not because I had a hunch, but because it was the quickest death. I needed points, fast. I didn't watch the feed, but the sounds leaked through my muted phone. Metal grinding, a muffled scream, then a wet pop that made my skin crawl. The banner flashed. Explosion. Correct prediction. Plus 200 points. My total hit 1150. I spent 100 on another clue, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The clue was a video, 6 seconds long. Ethan, his face bruised and bloody, his eyes barely open. He was in a new room, concrete again, but with a metal grate in the floor. A faint hum vibrated in the background, like a generator. He mouthed something, too weak to speak, and I froze the frame, my heart pounding. It looked like help. The feed cut off, and that distorted voice returned. "Tick-tock, sister. Choose your next move." The timer was at 18 minutes. I had to think, not just react. The metal grate, the hum, the water tower, they were pieces of a puzzle, but I was missing the edges. I pulled up the map fragment again, zooming in on the rail yard. The water tower was a landmark, visible from multiple buildings. One caught my eye, a derelict factory with a generator room, mentioned in an old urban exploration thread. It was a quarter-mile away, marked with K7 in the photos. I floored the gas, the city a blur of shadows and sodium lights. The factory was a hulking ruin, its walls sagging, its roof half collapsed. The K7 tag was fresh on a side door, glowing under my flashlight like a taunt. I pried it open, the metal screeching, and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and oil, the hum of a generator vibrating through the floor. My phone pinged. A new subject was loading, but I ignored it, following the hum down a corridor littered with broken pipes. The chat's taunts followed me, their words burned into my brain. Sister's too late. Ethan's a goner. I wanted to scream that they were wrong, that I'd find him, but my throat was raw, my voice gone. The corridor led to a stairwell, descending into darkness. The hum grew louder, the air colder, the drip of water joining the soundscape. At the bottom was a metal door, no keypad, just a heavy bolt. I slid it open, my arms trembling, and stepped into a room that matched the video. Concrete walls, metal grate in the floor, a single bulb swinging overhead. Ethan wasn't there, but the chair was, its restraints wet with blood, a knife discarded beside it. A camera blinked in the corner, its red light pinning me like a spotlight. My phone vibrated, the burner phone too, both screens flashing the same message. "You're so close, sister. One last bet." The timer was at 12 minutes. The new subject loaded, a child no older than 8, locked in a glass tank filling with water. The options: drowning, hypothermia, pressure implosion, or aquatic termination. The chat was a cesspool, users posting wave emojis and bets on how long the kid would hold their breath. I picked drowning, my hands shaking so badly I missed the button twice. I didn't watch, couldn't, but the sounds broke through, splashing, choking, silence. The banner flashed. Drowning. Correct prediction. 100 points. My total was 1250. I spent 100 on another clue, my last before the timer hit 0. It was a live feed, Ethan, his wrists bound, his face gray, lying on the metal grate in this very room. The camera panned up, showing the water tower through a high window, then back to him. A figure stepped into frame, hooded, holding a syringe filled with something green and viscous. The distorted voice spoke. "One final prediction, sister. Get it right or he's gone." The options appeared on my screen: injection, strangulation, blood loss, or chemical dissolution. The timer was at 8 minutes. I stared at Ethan's face, his eyes flickering, still alive but barely. The hooded figure raised the syringe, its needle glinting. I had to choose, but my mind was fracturing, the weight of every death I'd predicted crushing me. The chat was screaming now, users betting on Ethan's death, posting gifs of needles and melting flesh. "Sister's gonna choke," one wrote. "Ethan's done." I wanted to believe they were wrong, that I could save him, but the camera's red light was on me, and the hum of the generator felt like a countdown to my own end. I picked injection, my finger hovering, my heart screaming not to be wrong. The hooded figure plunged the syringe into Ethan's arm, his body jerking, his mouth opening in a silent scream. The feed cut to black, and my phone pinged. Prediction pending. Stay tuned. The timer was at 6 minutes. I sank to my knees, the knife from the floor in my hand, the camera still watching. The game wasn't over. It was never going to let me go. The concrete room was a tomb, the hum of the generator a death knell vibrating through my bones. Ethan's timer was at 5 minutes, 32 seconds, each tick a pulse of dread in my veins. My phone screen glowed with the game's feed, frozen on that last image. Ethan, convulsing as the hooded figure injected him with that sickly green liquid, his eyes rolling back, his body slumping on the metal grate. The words, "prediction pending." "Stay tuned," burned into my retinas. I'd chosen injection, but the game hadn't confirmed if I was right. It was toying with me, stretching out the agony like a blade drawn slowly across skin. The knife I'd found on the floor was still in my hand, its blade crusted with dried blood, Ethan's maybe, or someone else's. The camera's red light blinked in the corner, watching, always watching. My points were at 1150, enough for one last clue. But I couldn't move, couldn't think. The air was thick with the stench of blood and mildew, the drip of water from a leaking pipe sinking with my ragged breaths. The chat was a storm of cruelty, users flooding the screen with taunts. "Sister's done for. Ethan's melting from the inside. Bet she screams when she sees the body." One posted a gif of a corpse dissolving in acid, captioned, "This is for you, sister." My stomach heaved, but I had nothing left to vomit. I was empty, hollowed out by days of watching people die, of betting on their pain to save my brother. The burner phone I'd found on the chair pinged, a new message from the unknown number. "Want to see him? Predict the next one." My heart lurched. Another subject was loading, but Ethan's timer was at 4 minutes, 12 seconds. I couldn't wait for points. Couldn't play their game anymore. I spent 100 points on a final clue, my hand shaking so badly the phone nearly slipped from my grip. The clue was a live feed, 10 seconds long. Ethan, still on the grate, his chest barely moving, his skin gray and slick with sweat. The hooded figure stood over him, holding a second syringe, this one filled with something black and oily. The distorted voice hissed, "One last chance, sister. Come find him." The feed panned to the high window, the water tower visible outside, then cut to black. I was in the right place, the factory by the water tower, the room with the grate. Ethan was here somewhere, but the room was empty except for the chair and the camera. The timer hit 3 minutes, 48 seconds. I screamed his name, my voice cracking, echoing off the concrete. No answer, just the drip and the hum. The knife in my hand felt useless, but I gripped it tighter, my knuckles white. The game's feed loaded a new subject, a man, his body strapped to a rack, his limbs stretched taut. The options: disarticulation, tendon rupture, bone fracture, or total disassembly. The chat erupted, users betting on how many screams he'd let out before he broke. I picked bone fracture without looking, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of Ethan. I noticed the grate in the floor, the one from the video. It was loose, its edges rusted, a faint draft rising from below. I dropped to my knees, prying at it with the knife, the metal screeching as it gave way. Beneath was a crawl space, barely wide enough for a person, reeking of rot and something chemical. My flashlight caught glints of pipes and wires, and then movement. A shadow shifted, too big to be a rat. My heart stopped. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice trembling. The game's feed pinged. "Bone fracture. Correct prediction. Pause 100 points." I ignored it, crawling into the space, the knife clenched in one hand, my phone in the other. The tunnel was tight, the walls slimy, the air choking. My flashlight flickered, casting jagged shadows, and I heard it. A faint moan, human ahead. I crawled faster, ignoring the scrape of concrete on my knees, the stench burning my lungs. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, concrete like the one above. But this one was different. Cages lined the walls, some empty, some holding shapes I didn't want to see. In the center was Ethan, slumped on the floor, his wrists bound, his body trembling. He was alive. I scrambled to him, my hands shaking as I cut his ropes with the knife. His skin was cold, his pulse weak, the injection site on his arm swollen and black. "Ethan, it's me," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. His eyes fluttered, unfocused, but he mouthed my name, his voice barely a rasp. I tried to lift him, but he was heavy, his body limp. The timer on my phone was at 2 minutes, 14 seconds. A shadow moved behind me. I spun, the knife raised, and saw the hooded figure from the video, syringe in hand, its black contents gleaming. The figure's face was hidden, but their voice was the same distorted hiss. "You're late, sister." I lunged, swinging the knife, but they were fast, dodging and grabbing my wrist, twisting until I dropped the blade. Pain shot through my arm, but I kicked out, catching their knee. They stumbled, and I dove for the knife, my fingers closing around it just as they grabbed me from behind, the syringe inches from my neck. I thrashed, slamming my elbow into their ribs, and broke free, scrambling to Ethan. The timer was at 1 minute, 8 seconds. The figure laughed, the sound warped and inhuman, and raised the syringe again. "Predict, sister," they said. "Will it be you or him?" I didn't think, just acted, plunging the knife into their chest. They staggered, blood bubbling from beneath the hood, and collapsed, the syringe rolling across the floor. I dragged Ethan toward the tunnel, his weight crushing me, my strength fading. The timer hit 30 seconds. The game's feed was still running, the man on the rack screaming as his bones snapped. The chat was wild, users realizing something was wrong. "Sister's off script," one wrote. "She's in the game now." Another posted a live feed link, not of the subject, but of me, crawling through the tunnel with Ethan, the camera's red light following us from above. I reached the grate, pushing Ethan through, my arms burning. The timer was at 10 seconds. I climbed out after him, collapsing in the concrete room, the knife still in my hand. The feed pinged. "Injection. Correct prediction. But 100 points." Ethan's timer stopped at 2 seconds. He was breathing, barely, his pulse faint but there. I'd won, or so I thought. The burner phone pinged, a new message. "Game over, sister, but you're still playing." The camera's red light blinked and a new feed loaded on my phone. Not Ethan, not another subject, but me, sitting in the room, holding my brother. The chat exploded. "Sister's the new subject. Bet on her death. How's she gonna go?" The options appeared: suffocation, blood loss, overdose, or self-termination. I froze, my breath catching. The camera zoomed in, my face filling the screen, my eyes wide with terror, just like Ethan's had been. The hooded figure's body was gone, the syringe missing. Footsteps echoed in the distance, heavy, deliberate. The timer reset, now counting down from 72 hours. My phone pinged again, a message from the unknown number. "Welcome to the next round." I clutched Ethan, his body cold against mine, and realized the truth. The game was never about saving him. It was about breaking me. The knife in my hand felt heavy, the camera's red light unblinking. I'd saved Ethan, but at what cost? The chat was already betting on my death, their words a chorus of malice. I stood, dragging Ethan toward the door, the footsteps growing louder. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. I've always been drawn to the dark corners of the internet, the places where humanity's worst impulses fester like an open wound. As a true crime blogger, I've spent years sifting through the digital underbelly, forums, onion sites, encrypted chats, chasing stories that make your skin crawl. My blog, The Abyss Stares Back, has a small but loyal following. People come for the gruesome details, the kind of stories that keep you up at night, checking the locks on your doors. I've written about serial killers, black market organ trades, and cartel torture videos. but nothing prepared me for what I found that night. It started with a tip from a reader, someone anonymous who'd been lurking in my comment section for months. They sent me a onion link through an encrypted email, no subject line, just a string of random characters and a single sentence. "You're not ready for this." I'd seen plenty of cryptic messages before. Half of them lead to dead ends or phishing scams, but something about this one felt different. The link was to a site called The Directory, and the reader claimed it was a catalog of active Red Room contracts. Not the urban legend kind, not the grainy live streams of torture that people whisper about on Reddit. These were real-time assassination markets where clients paid in cryptocurrency to have people killed, and anyone could bid to carry out the job. I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across my cluttered apartment. Empty coffee mugs and crumpled notepads surrounded me, remnants of late-night writing sessions. My VPN was running, my Tor browser was up, and I'd taken every precaution I knew to stay anonymous. I hesitated before clicking the link, my finger hovering over the mouse. I'd chased leads into dark places before, but this felt like crossing a line. Still, I couldn't resist. The allure of a story this raw, this real, was too strong. I clicked. The page loaded slowly, the Tor network grinding as it pulled data from some hidden server halfway across the globe. When it finally appeared, the directory was stark, almost clinical. No flashy graphics, no ads, just a black background with white text arranged in a grid. Each entry was a contract, a name, a photo, a location, a price in Bitcoin, and a status, either open, in progress, or completed. Some entries had additional notes, preferred method of death, special requests, or proof of completion. My stomach churned as I scrolled through the list. There were dozens of names, people from all over the world, their faces staring out from grainy ID photos or stolen social media shots. A school teacher from Ohio, a lawyer from London, a factory worker from Mumbai, each one marked like livestock for slaughter. I read through the details, my heart pounding. One entry described a contract for a woman in her 30s. Completed. The proof was a link to a video. Against my better judgment, I clicked it. The footage was shaky, clearly shot on a cheap phone. It showed a woman tied to a chair in a dimly lit room, her face swollen and bruised. A figure in a black hoodie stood behind her, holding a knife. I won't describe what happened next, not because I can't, but because the memory still makes my hands shake. The video ended with a close-up of her lifeless eyes, blood pooling on the concrete floor. I slammed my laptop shut, my breath ragged. I told myself I'd seen worse, that I could handle it, but my body wasn't listening. I felt like I was going to be sick. After a few minutes, I forced myself to open the laptop again. I had to keep going. This was the kind of story that could blow my blog wide open, maybe even get me a book deal. I scrolled further, my eyes scanning the names and faces. That's when I saw it. My own name. My own face. The photo was from my blog's About page, one I'd taken myself in a coffee shop last year, smiling like an idiot. My address was listed, my real address down to the apartment number. The price was 5 Bitcoin, about $150,000 at the time. The status was open, and the preferred method was natural causes, heart attack. There was a note, target must not suspect, slow and painful. My mouth went dry. I couldn't move, couldn't blink. It was like the world had stopped, and all that existed was that screen, those words, my face staring back at me. I tried to tell myself it was a prank, some sick joke from a troll who'd read my blog. But the details were too precise. My address, my routine, even the coffee shop I went to every morning. I checked the contract's posting date, 2 days ago. The deadline for completion was in 5 days. Panic set in, but I forced myself to think. I'd dealt with creepy fans before, people who thought they could scare me with anonymous threats. This was different, but I wasn't helpless. I knew how the dark web worked. If this was a real site, there had to be a way to take it down. I started digging into the page's source code, looking for vulnerabilities. I'm not a hacker, but I've picked up enough over the years to know my way around. The site was locked down tight, no obvious exploits, but I found a contact form for the admin. I typed a message, my fingers trembling. "This is a mistake. My name is on your list. Remove it immediately." I hit send and waited. No response. I refreshed the page, hoping the entry would be gone. Instead, something worse happened. The deadline had changed. It now read, "Completion due in 4 days, 23 hours." My heart sank. I refreshed again, and the timer ticked down to 4 days, 22 hours. It was updating in real time, like some kind of countdown to my death. I tried everything I could think of. I reported the site to my VPN provider, to Tor's maintainers, even to the FBI's cybercrime division, though I knew they'd never trace it. I emailed the admin again, begging, threatening, offering money. Nothing worked. Every time I refreshed the page, the timer crept closer, and the details grew more specific. By the third refresh, the preferred method had changed to poison slow acting. By the fifth, there was a new note. Target is aware. Increased suffering. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every creak in my apartment, every shadow outside my window felt like a threat. I unplugged my router, turned off my phone, and sat in the dark, clutching a kitchen knife. I told myself I was being paranoid, that no one was coming for me. But the image of that woman in the video kept flashing in my mind. Her screams, the blood, the way her body went limp. I wondered if that's what they had planned for me. The next morning, I forced myself to act. I packed a bag and left my apartment, checking into a cheap motel across town. I paid in cash, used a fake name, and kept my hood up to avoid cameras. I set up my laptop with a new VPN and logged back into the directory. My entry was still there, unchanged except for the timer. 4 days, 10 hours. I tried to delete the page using a script I found on a hacking forum, but it didn't work. The site seemed to regenerate itself like it was hosted on some kind of decentralized network. I even tried contacting the reader who'd sent me the link, but their email bounced. Whoever they were, they'd vanished. That's when I noticed something new. A bidder had placed an offer on my contract, 2.7 Bitcoin. The username was just a string of numbers, no profile, no history. I clicked on the bidder's details, hoping to find something, anything, that could help me track them down. All I got was a single line. Contract accepted. Execution in progress. My blood ran cold. Someone had taken the job. Someone was coming for me. I spent the next few hours digging deeper into the directory. I found a forum linked to the site, a place where bidders and clients discussed contracts in coded language. The posts were chilling, people casually debating the best way to stage a heart attack or make a poisoning look accidental. One user mentioned a cleaner who specialized in slow-acting toxins, describing how the victim would feel their organs shutting down over days, unaware of the cause until it was too late. I couldn't stop reading, even as my vision blurred with panic. I kept refreshing my contract page, watching the timer tick down. By evening, it was at 4 days, 2 hours, and the note had changed again. Target has relocated. Adjust plan accordingly. They knew I'd moved. They were watching me. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the police. They'd think I was crazy and I had no proof. The site was on the dark web, inaccessible without Tor, and I doubted they'd take a blogger's word about an assassination market. I considered disappearing, leaving the country, but I had no money, no connections, no way to start over. And the thought of running forever, always looking over my shoulder, was almost worse than facing whatever was coming. That night, in the motel, I dreamed of the woman from the video. Her face was mine, and the figure in the hoodie was faceless, its hands dripping with blood. I woke up screaming, my shirt soaked with sweat. The room was pitch black, but I could hear something, a faint scratching at the door. I grabbed the knife from under my pillow and held my breath, waiting. The scratching stopped angles. It could have been anything. The wind, a rat. But it didn't stop. It went on for what felt like hours, a slow, deliberate scrape against the wood. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat against the wall, knife in hand, staring at the door until dawn. When the scratching finally stopped, I checked the directory again. The timer was down to 3 days, 20 hours. And there was a new note. Target is armed. Neutralize with care. They were closing in. The motel room felt like a trap. Its thin walls and flimsy lock no match for whoever was out there. The scratching at the door had stopped, but the silence was worse. It felt alive, heavy with intent. I hadn't slept in over 24 hours, and my nerves were frayed to the point of snapping. My laptop sat on the wobbly motel desk, its screen glowing with the directory, The timer now at 3 days, 18 hours. The note still read, "Target is armed. Neutralize with care." Every refresh brought a new detail, each one tightening the noose around my neck. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, not just online, but in the real world. My every move tracked by someone, or something, lurking just out of sight. I'd spent the morning trying to cover my tracks. I ditched my phone in a dumpster behind the motel, smashing it with a brick first to make sure it couldn't be traced. I'd bought a burner phone with cash from a gas station, but I hadn't activated it yet, too paranoid about any signal giving me away. I kept the curtains drawn, the door bolted, and the knife closed, but none of it made me feel safer. The motel was a dive, the kind of place where no one asked questions, but that worked both ways. Nobody would notice if someone slipped in and slit my throat. I forced myself to focus. If I couldn't delete the contract, maybe I could find out who was behind it. I went back to the forum linked to the directory, scrolling through threads filled with coded language and cryptic boasts. One user, Cleaner7, had posted about a recent job. Target went quietly. Toxin took 48 hours. No mess. The replies were congratulatory, like they were discussing a successful business deal instead of a murder. I searched for any mention of my contract, but the posts were too vague, too careful. These people knew how to cover their tracks. Then I found something, a private message thread that hadn't been properly encrypted. It was between Cleaner7 and someone called Client X. The client had written, "New job posted. High priority. Target is digging too deep. Needs to be slow, needs to hurt." The reply from Cleaner7 was chilling. "Got it. I'll use the blend. Paralytic and corrosive. They'll feel every second." My stomach lurched. I didn't know if they were talking about me, but the timing was too close, the details too specific. I copied the thread and saved it to a USB drive just in case I needed evidence later, if there was a later. I decided to move again. Staying in one place felt like begging to be found. I checked out of the motel, keeping my hood up and avoiding the clerk's eyes. I walked 3 miles to a bus station, my bag slung over my shoulder, the knife tucked into my waistband. Every face in the crowd felt like a threat. The old man reading a newspaper, the woman pushing a stroller, the teenager scrolling on his phone. Any of them could be the bidder, watching, waiting. I bought a ticket to a small town an hour away, figuring it was obscure enough to buy me time. On the bus, I sat at the back, my eyes darting to every passenger who boarded. Nobody looked at me twice, but that didn't ease the knot in my chest. The new town was quiet, a sleepy place with a single diner and a motel even shabbier than the last. I checked in under another fake name and paid for a week up front, hoping to throw off anyone tracking my movements. My new room smelled of mildew and cigarette smoke, but it had a deadbolt and a window that faced the parking lot. I set up my laptop, reconnected to Tor, and checked the directory. The timer was down to 3 days, 10 hours. The note had changed again. Target in transit. Adjust to new location. My heart stopped. They knew I'd moved again. How? I'd been so careful. No phone, no credit cards, no patterns. It was like they were inside my head, anticipating every step. I started to wonder if the site itself was the problem. What if the directory wasn't just a marketplace, but something more? I'd heard rumors about dark websites that weren't entirely human-operated. Platforms that used AI or some kind of automated system to manage contracts and track targets. It sounded like a conspiracy theory, but the way the page kept updating, the way it seemed to know things, made me question what I was dealing with. I tried to dig into the site's infrastructure again, but every attempt hit a dead end. The servers were hidden, the code impenetrable. I even tried brute forcing the admin login, but after an hour of failed attempts, I got a pop-up message. "Stop trying. You're only making it worse." I froze. The message disappeared as quickly as it appeared, but it left me shaking. Was the site watching me? Was someone on the other end toying with me? I slammed the laptop shut and paced the room, my mind racing. I couldn't keep running forever. I needed to fight back, to find out who was behind this and why. I thought about my blog, The Abyss Stares Back. I'd exposed a lot of ugly truths over the years. Corrupt cops, shady dealers, even a cult operating out of a rural commune. Had I pissed off the wrong person? Was this revenge? I reopened the laptop and went through my old posts, looking for anything that might have triggered this. One article stood out, a piece I'd written 6 months ago about a dark web marketplace selling hacked government data. I'd gotten the tip from an anonymous source, the same way I'd gotten the link to the directory. The post hadn't gotten much traction, but I'd named a few key players, people with money and power. Maybe one of them had connections to this assassination market. Maybe I'd gotten too close. I decided to reach out to my readers. I posted a vague update on my blog, saying I was working on something big and needed information about Red Room contracts. I didn't mention the directory or my own situation, but I hoped someone out there might know something. Within hours, I got a response in my encrypted inbox. It was from a new account, no name, just a string of numbers. The message was short. You're in too deep. They see everything. Delete your blog and disappear, or you'll end up like the others. Attached was a photo, a grainy image of me sitting in the diner I'd stopped at earlier that day, my hood up, my face half visible but unmistakable. I dropped the burner phone I'd just activated, my hands trembling so badly I could barely pick it up. They'd been there, in the diner, close enough to take a picture. I ran to the window and peered through the blinds, scanning the parking lot. It was empty, the streetlights casting long shadows across the asphalt. But I knew they were out there. I could feel it. That night, I barely slept, jolting awake at every sound. A car passing, a door creaking down the hall. When I checked the directory again, the timer was at 3 days, 2 hours. The note had changed. Target isolated. Proceed with plan. There was a new detail under the preferred method. Toxin administered. Awaiting results. My blood ran cold. Had they already poisoned me? I hadn't eaten anything since the diner, hadn't drunk anything but a sealed bottle of water. But my body felt off, my chest tight, my stomach cramping. Was it fear, or was something already inside me, working its way through my veins? I rummaged through my bag for the USB drive with the forum thread. I needed to keep digging to find Cleaner 7 or Client X. But when I plugged it in, the drive was empty. The files were gone, replaced with a single text document. I opened it, my heart pounding. It read, "You can't hide, you can't fight, you can only wait." I threw the USB across the room, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The site, the contract, the bidder, they weren't just tracking me. They were playing with me, savoring my fear. I checked the timer again. 2 days, 23 hours. And then, for the first time, I noticed a new field on my contract. Live feed. There was a link next to it. My cursor hovered over it, my instincts screaming not to click. But I had to know. The link opened a grainy video stream like the one I'd seen before. It showed a room, dark and bare, with a single chair in the center. Nobody was there, but the camera was live, the timestamp ticking in the corner. I stared at the empty chair, my mind racing. Was this where they planned to take me? Was this my red room? Then I heard it again. The scratching. Not at the door this time, but at the window. Slow, deliberate, like nails dragging across glass. I grabbed the knife and backed away, my eyes locked on the blinds. The scratching grew louder, rhythmic, almost mocking. I didn't dare look outside. I didn't need to. I knew they were there, waiting for the timer to hit 0. The scratching at the window stopped as abruptly as it began, leaving a silence that pressed against my eardrums like a physical weight. I stood frozen, the knife trembling in my grip, my eyes fixed on the blinds where the sound had come from. The motel room felt smaller now, the walls closing in, the air thick with the stench of mildew and my own sweat. My laptop sat open on the desk, the live feed from the directory still running, that empty chair taunting me with its promise of what was to come. The timer read 2 days, 20 hours. The note hadn't changed. Target isolated. Proceed with plan. Toxin administered. Awaiting results. My stomach twisted, not just from fear but from a growing certainty that something was wrong inside me. My skin felt clammy, my pulse uneven, like my body was betraying me from within. I forced myself to move, to do something other than stand there waiting for the inevitable. I checked the window first, easing the blinds aside just enough to peek out. The parking lot was empty, the streetlights flickering in the early morning haze. No figures, no cars, no sign of whoever or whatever had been scratching at the glass. But the feeling of being watched didn't fade. It clung to me, heavy and suffocating, like a second skin. I double-checked the deadbolt, wedged a chair under the doorknob, and dragged the motel's rickety dresser in front of the window. It wouldn't stop anyone determined, but it might slow them down. I turned back to the laptop, the live feed still looping silently. The empty chair seemed to pulse with malice, as if it knew I was watching. I closed the tab, unable to stomach it any longer, and went back to the directory. I needed answers about the site, the bidder, the client, anything that could help me survive. The forum was still active, filled with cryptic posts about completed jobs and new contracts. I searched for Cleaner 7 again, hoping to find something I'd missed. There was a new post from them, time-stamped an hour ago. Job progressing smoothly, target showing signs. Will confirm completion soon. My breath caught. Signs? What signs? The cramps in my stomach, the tightness in my chest, were they symptoms or just my mind spiraling? I couldn't tell anymore. I tried to think logically. If they'd poisoned me, it had to have happened recently, probably at the diner, the only place I'd eaten since this started. I remembered the coffee, bitter and slightly gritty, but I'd chalked it up to the cheap blend. Now I wasn't so sure. I rummaged through the motel's bathroom looking for anything to induce vomiting, but all I found was a half-empty bottle of hand soap and a crusty tube of toothpaste. I drank water from the tap until my stomach ached, hoping to dilute whatever might be in my system, but it didn't help. The cramps were getting worse, sharp stabs that left me doubled over, gasping. I needed help, but I couldn't trust anyone. Not the police, not a hospital. Admitting myself would mean giving my real name, my location, making it easier for them to find me. Instead, I turned to the only resource I had left, the internet. I logged into a dark web medical forum I'd stumbled across years ago while researching a story on black market drugs. It was a risky move. Posting anything could expose me, but I was out of options. I used a throwaway account and wrote a vague post. Possible poisoning, slow acting, symptoms include cramps and chest pain. Need advice? Urgent. I didn't mention the directory or the contract, but I hoped someone would know something. Within minutes, responses flooded in. Most were useless, trolls suggesting I drink bleach or accept my fate, but one user, Docshade, seemed legit. They described a toxin called tetrodotoxin, often used in assassinations because it was slow, painful, and hard to detect. Symptoms start with nausea, cramps, then progress to paralysis, they wrote. No antidote, but activated charcoal might slow it. Get to a hospital if you can. I didn't have activated charcoal, and a hospital wasn't an option. I replied, asking for more details, but Docshade went silent. Then I got a private message from an anonymous account. Stop asking questions. You're making it easier for them. Attached was another photo, this time of me in the motel room, taken through the window I'd just barricaded. I stumbled back from the laptop, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. They'd been here, right outside while I was typing. I grabbed the knife and checked the window again, but the dresser was still in place, the blinds undisturbed. How had they gotten the photo? A drone? A hidden camera? I tore through the room, ripping pillows apart, flipping the mattress, checking the light fixtures for anything that didn't belong. Nothing. But the photo was real. My hoodie, my bag, the exact angle of the desk. They were everywhere. I couldn't stay here. I packed my bag, my hands shaking so badly I could barely zip it. The cramps were constant now, a dull ache that flared into sharp bursts every few minutes. My vision blurred at the edges and my legs felt unsteady like they might give out. I didn't know if it was the toxin or just exhaustion, but I couldn't stop moving. I left the motel through a side exit, avoiding the front desk, and headed for the bus station again. This time, I didn't buy a ticket. I stole a bike from a rack outside a convenience store and pedaled out of town, sticking to back roads where no one could follow me. The cold air stung my lungs, but it kept me alert, kept me alive. I ended up in a rundown industrial park, all rusted warehouses and cracked pavement. I found an abandoned building with a broken window and climbed inside, collapsing against a wall. The place smelled of oil and decay, but it was shelter, and it was empty. I set up my laptop, using the last of my battery to check the directory. The timer was down to 2 days, 12 hours. The note had changed. Target in hiding, toxin progressing. Increase dosage if necessary. My stomach dropped. Increase dosage? They were still coming for me, still finding ways to get to me. I tried to think through the fog in my head, If the toxin was real, I didn't have much time. I needed to find the client, the person who'd ordered the hit. I went back to the forum, searching for any mention of Client X. I found an older thread, buried deep, where they'd posted about another contract. Target was too curious, handled with precision. There was a link to a file, labeled Proof. I hesitated, remembering the last video, but I had to know. I clicked it. The file was a series of photos, not a video. The first showed a man, maybe in his 40s, sitting at a desk, his face pale and sweaty. The next showed him collapsed on the floor, his eyes wide, foam at his mouth. The final photo was a close-up of his hand, clutching a pen, a half-written note beside it. "They're watching." My chest tightened. This wasn't just a hit. It was a message. Whoever was behind the directory didn't just kill people. They broke them first. I closed the file and kept digging, my fingers clumsy on the keyboard. The cramps were worse now, radiating up my spine. My vision doubled for a moment, and I had to grip the wall to stay upright. That's when I heard it. A low hum, like a distant engine, coming from outside the warehouse. I crawled to the broken window and peered out. A black van was parked across the lot, its engine idling. I couldn't see anyone inside, but the hum grew louder, more insistent, like it was taunting me. I checked the directory one last time. The timer was at 2 days, 8 hours. A new note. Target located. Final phase initiated. Below it, the live feed link had updated. I clicked it, my hands shaking so badly I could barely move the cursor. The video loaded, and the chair wasn't empty anymore. It was me, my face, my hoodie, my bag, sitting in that dark room, my hands bound, my eyes wide with terror. The timestamp was live, ticking in real time, but I was still here in the warehouse, not there. The hum outside stopped. Footsteps crunched on the gravel, slow and deliberate, coming closer. The footsteps outside the warehouse grew louder, each crunch of gravel like a hammer against my skull. My vision swam. The cramps in my stomach now a relentless burn, as if something was clawing its way through my insides. The knife in my hand felt useless, a child's toy against whatever was coming. My laptop sat open on the concrete floor, the live feed still running, showing me, impossibly, bound to that chair in a room I'd never seen. The timestamp ticked in real time, mocking me with its precision. I wasn't there, not yet, but the image felt like a prophecy, a glimpse of the fate the directory had planned. I forced myself to move, dragging my bag and laptop into a shadowy corner of the warehouse, where rusted machinery offered some cover. The air was thick with dust and the sharp tang of metal, but I barely noticed. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out everything except those footsteps. They stopped just outside the broken window I'd climbed through, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then a low, deliberate tap, metal against glass like someone testing the frame. I gripped the knife tighter, my knuckles white, and held my breath. The tap came again, sharper this time, followed by a faint scrape, like a tool prying at the window's edge. I crouched lower, my body screaming in protest, as the toxin, or whatever it was, gnawed at me. My legs trembled, threatening to give out, and a wave of nausea forced me to bite my lip to keep from retching. I couldn't fight, not like this. I needed to run, but where? The warehouse was a maze of shadows, but there was only one way in or out that I knew of, and they were already there. I glanced at the laptop, the screen's glow a faint beacon in the dark. The timer on the directory read 2 days, 4 hours. The note had changed again. Target cornered. Extraction imminent. Extraction. The word sent a chill down my spine, conjuring images of black bags and zip ties of being dragged to that chair in the live feed. I couldn't let that happen. I had to find a way out, even if it meant facing whoever was outside. I crept toward the far end of the warehouse, staying low, my shoes silent against the concrete. The pain in my stomach was unbearable now, each step a battle against my own body. I found a rusted fire door half hidden behind a stack of rotting crates. It was chained shut, but the padlock was old, the chain brittle. I wedged the knife under the lock and pried with all the strength I had left. The metal groaned, then snapped, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the empty space. I froze, listening for the footsteps, but they didn't resume. That scared me more than if they had. I slipped through the door into an alley, the night air cold against my sweat-soaked skin. The black van was still there, parked at the edge of the lot, its engine off but its presence looming like a predator waiting to strike. I didn't see anyone, but I felt them. Eyes in the dark, watching. I ran or tried to, my legs wobbling as I staggered down the alley toward a cluster of abandoned buildings. My vision blurred again, and I stumbled, catching myself against a brick wall. Blood trickled from my nose, hot and metallic, dripping onto my lips. I wiped it away, but it kept coming, a steady stream that stained my sleeve. I ducked into another building, this one a gutted factory with broken windows and a collapsed roof. It was a dead end, but it was better than being out in the open. I sank behind a pile of debris, my breath ragged, and pulled out the laptop. The battery was at 5%, but I had to check the directory again. The timer was down to 2 days, 2 hours. The note now read, "Target bleeding. Toxin at stage 2. Prepare for containment." Stage 2. The words confirmed what my body already knew. Whatever they'd done to me was progressing, eating away at me from the inside. I didn't know how much time I had left, but I couldn't give up. Not yet. I went back to the forum, desperate for anything that could help. There was a new thread from Cleaner 7 posted minutes ago. Target is stubborn. Toxin working slower than expected. Switching to manual. Manual. Did that mean they were done waiting for the poison to finish me? Were they coming to do it themselves? I scrolled further, my fingers clumsy, and found a reply from Client X. "No delays. Finish it before the feed goes live." The feed. That damn chair, that room. They wanted it to be a show. I tried to message Doc Shade from the medical forum, begging for more information on tetrodotoxin, but my post wouldn't send. The forum returned an error. Access denied. User flagged. Flagged? By who? I tried another account, but the same message appeared. It was like the directory was locking me out, isolating me even in the digital world. I switched to my blog's encrypted inbox, hoping someone had responded to my earlier post. There was one new message from another anonymous account. "You can't outrun them. They're not human." Attached was a screenshot of my contract, but the photo had changed. It wasn't the one from my blog anymore. It was me, right now, crouched in this factory, my face pale and blood-streaked, the laptop glowing in my lap. I dropped the laptop, the screen cracking as it hit the concrete. My chest heaved, panic swallowing me whole. They were here, or they had cameras, or, God, I didn't know anymore. The line between reality and the nightmare of the directory was blurring, and I couldn't tell what was real. I grabbed the knife and stood, my legs shaking, determined to fight even if it killed me. That's when I heard the hum again. The van's engine, closer now, idling just outside the factory. I limped toward the nearest window, peering through the jagged glass. The van was parked at the edge of the building, its side door open. A figure stood beside it, shrouded in a black hoodie, their face obscured. They weren't moving, just standing there, like they knew I was watching. In their hand was a syringe, glinting under the streetlight. I backed away, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. The cramps were unbearable now, my vision spotting with black. I didn't know if it was the toxin or fear, but I was running out of time. I stumbled deeper into the factory, searching for another exit. The pain was so intense I could barely think, my body screaming at me to stop, to lie down, to give in. But I couldn't. Not when I could still hear the van's engine, feel the weight of those unseen eyes. I found a stairwell leading to a basement, the steps slick with mold. I half fell down them, landing hard on the damp concrete below. The air was thick, choking, but it was a hiding place. I curled up behind a rusted boiler, clutching the knife, and tried to steady my breathing. My laptop was useless now, the battery dead, but I didn't need it to know the timer was still ticking. I could feel it in my bones, in the way my body was shutting down. The bleeding hadn't stopped, and my hands were numb, my fingers barely able to grip the knife. I thought about the live feed, about that version of me in the chair. Was it a fake? A manipulation to break me? Or was it something worse? Some kind of prediction, a glimpse of a future I couldn't escape. The hum of the van stopped, replaced by footsteps again, heavier this time, echoing down the stairwell. I pressed myself against the boiler, the cold metal biting into my back. The footsteps paused at the bottom of the stairs, and I heard a voice, low, distorted, like it was filtered through a device. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," it said. "Come out. It'll be quick." I didn't move, didn't breathe. The voice laughed, a sound that sent ice through my veins. "You think you can hide? We've been inside you since the diner." The syringe. The toxin. They'd been playing me from the start, letting me run just to watch me unravel. The footsteps started again, closer now, deliberate. I tightened my grip on the knife, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Then my vision flickered, and for a moment I saw it. The chair, the room, my own face staring back at me, blood dripping from my nose onto the concrete. It wasn't a screen. It was in my head, vivid and real, like I was already there. The footsteps stopped and the voice whispered, "See you soon." The voice lingered in the basement, its distorted echo curling around me like smoke. "See you soon." The words weren't just a threat. They were a promise, carved into the air with surgical precision. I pressed myself harder against the rusted boiler, the cold metal digging into my spine, the knife in my hand slick with sweat and blood from my nose. The cramps had spread, a searing pain that clawed up my chest and into my throat, making every breath a struggle. My vision flickered again. That impossible image of myself in the chair flashing behind my eyes, bound, bleeding, staring into a void that stared back. I didn't know if it was the toxin, a hallucination, or something worse, but it felt like the directory was inside me, rewriting my reality. The footsteps resumed, slow and deliberate, circling the basement. I could hear the faint clink of metal, a syringe maybe, or something sharper. My body was failing, my legs numb, my arms trembling so badly the knife felt like it might slip from my grasp. I wanted to run, to fight, but I was trapped, cornered in this damp, rotting tomb. The voice spoke again, closer now, just beyond the boiler. "You dug too deep," it said, low and mechanical. "You thought you could expose us, but we're not just a sight. We're everywhere." I bit my tongue to keep from whimpering, the taste of blood mixing with the metallic tang already in my mouth. My mind raced, piecing together fragments of what I'd learned. The directory wasn't just a marketplace. It was alive, or something close to it. The way it updated, the way it knew my every move, the photos, the live feed. It was like a predator, not just tracking me, but anticipating me, feeding on my fear. And Client X, Cleaner 7, the bidders, they weren't just people. They were part of it, extensions of whatever this thing was. The footsteps stopped, and I heard a faint hiss, like air escaping a syringe. My heart lurched. They were going to finish it, right here, right now. The timer on the directory was at 2 days, 2 hours when I'd last checked. But I knew it was closer now. Maybe hours, maybe minutes. I couldn't wait anymore. I had to act, even if it was futile. I tightened my grip on the knife and lunged from behind the boiler, swinging wildly at the figure in the dark. The blade connected with something, cloth, maybe flesh, and there was a grunt, low and surprised. I stumbled forward, my vision doubling, and saw the figure in the black hoodie, the syringe glinting in their hand. They were taller than I'd expected, their face still hidden, but they moved fast, dodging my next swing with ease. "You're already dead," the voice hissed, and they lunged, the syringe aimed at my neck. I ducked, pure adrenaline keeping me upright, and slashed again, catching their arm. Blood sprayed, dark and warm, and they staggered back, cursing through the distortion. I didn't wait to see how badly I'd hurt them. I ran, or tried to, my legs buckling as I stumbled up the stairwell. The pain was blinding now, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. Blood dripped from my nose, my mouth, pooling in my throat until I was choking on it. I made it to the factory floor, the broken windows letting in slivers of moonlight. The van was still outside, its door open, waiting. I couldn't go that way. I turned toward another exit, a half-collapsed door leading to the back of the building, and forced myself through it, collapsing into the weeds outside. The air was cold, sharp, but it didn't clear my head. The world was tilting, the ground swaying beneath me. I crawled, dragging myself toward a ditch at the edge of the industrial park, hoping it would hide me. My body was shutting down, the toxin in its final stage, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. I thought of the live feed, of that chair, of the other victims I'd seen, broken, discarded, their deaths a spectacle for whoever paid to watch. I wouldn't let that be me. I reached the ditch and rolled into it, the mud cold against my burning skin. My bag was still slung over my shoulder, the cracked laptop inside, useless now. I didn't have the strength to check the directory again, but I didn't need to. I could feel the timer in my bones, ticking down to 0. The footsteps were back, fainter now, searching the factory. They hadn't seen me escape, but they'd find me soon. I had minutes, maybe less. I fumbled in my pocket for the burner phone I'd bought but never activated. My hands were numb, the screen blurring as I tried to turn it on. I didn't know who to call. Nobody would believe me, and I'd left no evidence, no proof of the directory except my own failing body. But I had to try. I dialed 911, my fingers slipping, and whispered into the phone as it connected. "I'm being hunted," I rasped, my voice barely audible. "They poisoned me. It's a site, a dark website. They're killing people. Please." The call cut out, the battery dead or the signal jammed. I dropped the phone, despair washing over me. That's when I saw it. A figure at the edge of the ditch, silhouetted against the moonlight. Not the one I'd fought, but another, smaller, holding something that glinted. Another syringe. I tried to move, to crawl deeper into the mud, but my body wouldn't listen. The figure stepped closer, their movements slow, deliberate, like they knew I was done. "You were warned," they said, their voice undistorted now, soft and almost pitying. It was a woman's voice, calm, like she was soothing a dying animal. "You could have stopped digging." I opened my mouth to scream, to beg, but no sound came. My vision flickered again, and I was back in the chair, the room, the ropes biting into my wrists. But I wasn't there. I was in the ditch, the mud soaking through my clothes, the woman standing over me. The two realities overlapped, my mind fracturing under the weight of it. She raised the syringe, and I saw her face for the first time, blank, expressionless, her eyes like black mirrors reflecting nothing. She wasn't human. She couldn't be. The needle pierced my neck, and fire spread through my veins, worse than the toxin, worse than anything I'd felt. I convulsed, my body arching against the mud, my mouth open in a silent scream. The world dissolved into static, like a corrupted video feed, and I saw the chair again, my own face staring back, blood pooling on the floor. The timestamp on the feed was now, this moment, my death being broadcast to whoever was watching. But I wasn't dead yet. I clung to that thought, to the faint spark of defiance still burning in me. I swung the knife one last time, a weak, desperate arc that caught her leg. She staggered, dropping the syringe, and I rolled out of the ditch, dragging myself toward the trees at the edge of the lot. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. The pain was beyond comprehension now, my body a traitor. But I crawled inch by inch, the mud sucking at my hands. I heard the van's engine roar to life behind me, headlights cutting through the dark. They were coming, all of them. The bidders, the client, the thing that was the directory. I reached the trees and collapsed, my breath a wet rattle, my vision gone. The last thing I saw was the live feed in my mind, my body slumped in that chair, the timestamp frozen at 0. But I wasn't in the chair. I was here, in the dirt, still alive, still fighting. I didn't know how, but I'd cheated their script if only for a moment. The van's lights swept closer, and I heard voices, not just one now, but many, overlapping, distorted, chanting something I couldn't understand. My hand closed around the knife, the blade biting into my palm. If they wanted me, they'd have to take me themselves. The trees swallowed me and the world went black.